Hey guys, James with Torches and Tactical, and today we're looking at large TIR optical tactical thrower. This one is the Sofirn IF19. Now this was sent to us from our friends over at Sofirn. They wanted to know what I thought about this, and they wanted me to tell you guys what I thought about this. So this is a small tactical thrower, and this gives you 2000 lumens from a very large TIR optic with a SST20, and that throws out to 461 meters. It is all powered by an 18350 cell, and it gives you 5 brightness modes as well as 1 strobe. That, combined with a very basic user interface, should make this accessible to anyone looking for a very long distance but small in size thrower. So let's get into the packaging. Now the packaging that the Sofirn IF19 does come in looks a lot like a lot of the other Sofirn lights. It does have this slide carton that goes around the outside, and if we take that off, we can see inside the package. Now this was actually around the light, and if you take a look at it, it just wants to let you know that there was a battery isolator. So before you try to turn it on, no, nothing's wrong with the light. You just need to make sure that you remove that little piece of insulation that stops the current from flowing. So we get that out of the way. Now there is also this accessories package here. And this accessories package has everything else that you'll need to keep your light going. Now we can start with the lanyard and O-rings. That's inside a little bag here. So if your O-rings ever do wear out, or you just want to replace them after so long, you can go ahead and do that. Additionally, there is a USB-C cord in here. That's right, this does have onboard USB-C charging. Now the other side is USB-A. And it's a fairly decent size length, so you can make sure that your juice is always topped up and ready to go. So let's get that out of the way. And if we look back in here real fast, you will see that it is actually shipped in a very, very dense microcell foam. That's going to make sure that you don't get any damage from your IF19 on the way to you. So finally, it will show you that it does come with that SST40. Now this is the set. It comes with the battery in it, listed at 6000 Kelvin. And yeah. So with that out of the way, let's focus on the part that really matters, the light. Now this does feel amazing in the hand. It does have a very, very nice radius, if you will, on this shoulder coming up to the actual bezel. Now the bezel itself, you can see very, very aggressive knurling, and if you need to, this will allow you to take the head off, to take the lens and everything apart, but we're not going to do that in here. Let's make sure that that's tight. And you can see that that's not the only design choice made on here. Now, the knurling does carry down to the battery tube, but you can see some sort of machining here to give you a little bit of differentiation, if you will. And then right next to the switch, you will see some of those cooling fins. Now those cooling fins, I don't know if it's going to make that much of a difference because they're not the deepest cuts in the world, but they do surround not only the E-switch up front here, but they do surround the USB-C charging. Now I showed you the USB-C cord, so let's go ahead and take a look, and you can see the USB-C charging right there. And I do have to say that this is one of the nicer USB charging port covers that I've seen. I do like the fact that it fits in there. It's a rather deep cover, and it holds very, very strong. Now, just looking at it, you can see almost like, let's count them together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There is like an octagonal machine cut into the base. That's going to give you a lot of stability because it does widen out at the base, which is always nice. I mean, it's not the tallest light in the world, so I feel like you might have a bunch of stability anyways, but having those machines allows it to flare out and give just a little more stability. Plus, I think it looks rather cool. Now you can see that lanyard hole in that tail cap. That's going to help with retention and making sure that you're not going to lose it. You attach that lanyard through here, it will wrap around the wrist and make sure that the light's not going anywhere at all. And while I have the flashlight like this, I will show you. Now, this is one fatal flaw that I have seen here. You can see the small battery indicator showing the direction of the head of the battery, or the positive and negative terminals. Now, if you look at it, it shows that the positive goes towards the switch. And the mistake I see here is that they are ambidextrous threads. They are both anodized on the battery tube, but they're ambidextrous. So what was having the battery facing the switch can also be installed just the same having it down. So if this ever comes apart, and it's likely to, I mean, I know I like to tinker with things, so it's not uncommon that other people do too. But if you take it apart and that battery tube does go on backwards, you know, you can put your battery in facing the way that the battery tube shows, and it can just not work. So be sure to note that the battery does go with the positive terminal facing the switch. So when you put it all back together, everything is facing the right way. Oh, let's get that back on there. Apparently I'm struggling today. But with that whole thing back together, let's make sure that the battery's in there the right way. You can see that switch light up. Now that does serve as a battery indicator as well. But make sure that battery is in there the right way, and you shouldn't have any problems after that. So now that I just put that tail cap back on, let's go ahead and take that off one more time. Now you can see this does have internally anodized threads, except for the very base, and that's going to make contact. That's going to make contact with the bottom of the battery tube. So that is one nice thing about this, is if you ever want to make sure that you're not going to turn it on in your pocket, you can just give a quick twist of the tail cap, and that will disengage the conductivity coming from the battery all the way to the driver. So you can so that's one method you can use to make sure that this isn't going to turn on in your pocket. Now I will, as soon as I get to the user interface, I will talk about, there is another approach that Sofirn takes with this, but we'll talk about that in the user interface. So you saw that gold spring on the tail cap. If we take off the front of the battery tube, you can see the driver board here. It does have another gold-plated spring and also anodized threads. Now the anodizing is very nice on this whole unit, but if you look here, it is more of a matte finish. Inside, it appears much more glossy. Now I don't know if they finish this off separately or have a different coating, but that's just one thing to note. And I think the gloss inside does help that battery tube engage a little easier. So getting into the user interface. Now, again, you can see that green light up as soon as the battery comes on. And for this, it's super simple. It does have a memory mode, and you can just press the button once to turn the light on. If you want to go straight to turbo, you can hit it twice. There you go. You got your full 2000 lumens, and this is putting out a decent amount of heat. You can press one more time, and that drops you down back to the mode you were just in prior to going to turbo. And while it's off, you can press 3 times, and that's going to activate your strobe. Then if you press 4 times, this does lock out the light. Okay, so you saw that light blink after I hit it 4 times. Now if I hit it again, it'll just blink. So the light is locked out. And unfortunately, I've never been a fan of automatic lockouts. This does have an automatic lockout at 1 minute of non-use. So if it goes in your bag, as soon as 1 minute passes, it will automatically lock. That is something that I wish were to be able to be disengaged or engaged at the consumer's option. I don't like when the choice is made for me, frankly. But getting back to that user interface, let's go ahead and press twice to turn it on. Now while it's on, you can press 4 times. Okay, and it'll blink, but it stays on. So while it's on, if you press 4 times, that's not going to engage the lockout. Instead, what that's going to do is that's going to switch between your stepped. So you're going to have like a high, medium, low. In fact, this one is moonlight, low, medium, high, and turbo. But if you do that while the light is on, it's going to switch between those stepped modes and a stepless. So right now, if we press and hold the button, so you can see it cycling between low, medium, high, and turbo. If we press 4 more times, okay, there we go. It double blinked. So now if we press it, it will do more of a smooth ramp and have essentially infinite levels in between, instead of going straight from low to medium to high to turbo and all that. And one nice thing to note about this too is even with that very small 18350 cell, which is rated at 850 milliamp hours. It doesn't have any charging circuit, so it does give you a little boost in power. But with this 850 milliamp hour 18350 cell, this will give you up to 5 hours of use, and that is usable light. You can tell the moonlight's not that low, and it does throw pretty decent considering it has that SST40 with the large TIR optic. Now, if we do focus on what's coming out of the business end, let's go ahead and turn it on facing at the table. So you can see a very, very obvious hotspot, but you don't see that stark contrast from the center of the hotspot to the spill. This is a very soft line, and that's because this is a diffused centered piece on this TIR optic. Now let me see if I can get in here. There you go. You can see a little bit. The center part is diffused, and that's just going to make sure that you don't have the obvious hotspot and spill, but instead it flows more evenly. Now, it doesn't really have a corona, so to speak, but that spill is incredibly soft. You can see that as soon as you get out here just a little bit, it does start tapering off into nothingness, if you will. So this isn't going to be focused on getting out there 1,000 meters, but I mean, 461 meters from something this small is pretty darn good. And I have to say that I do like the fact that they were able to get everything in such a tiny package. Not only that, but they aren't relying on fancy user interfaces. They aren't relying on RGBs or anything like that. Not to say there's anything wrong with that, but this is very much a stripped, more down to the core basic version of other TIR throwers, such as the IF22A or the TS11. Now you can see obvious stark differences between these. And this is going to be kind of the gung-ho, try to give you everything in one small package. This is more, hey man, I just want some light and I want to be able to throw it. And there are people for both categories. But what I want to do now is I want to compare the IF19 and the TS11. Now, yes, I know these both do have luminous LEDs. This one is the SST40 and this one's the SFT40. Now, the SFT40 is basically a de-domed version of the SST40. Basically, what that means is it's going to throw a little bit better instead of trying to bounce that light around in the shape of a dome. So that's going to give this an advantage on throw, but we're not really going for who's going to win and who has the most output, who has the biggest throw. We just want to compare beam patterns for this one. So let's get outside and we'll compare the IF19 from Sofirn as well as the TS11 from our friends over at Workos. So let's get out there and do it. All right, guys, we have the Sofirn IF19. Now, first thing you want to do is make sure to double tap to unlock it. Then we have low, medium, high, and then a double tap for turbo. This is all 2,000 lumens with the IF19. And since the TS11 has so many different modes, I'm just going to turn it on and then go straight to turbo. Now this is also 2,000 lumens, but from the TS11. And again, to compare, all 2,000 lumens with the IF19. Versus the TS11. All right, guys, let's get back inside. All right, guys, we did go outside and we compared the IF19 with its TIR, SST40, and 461 meters of throw to the TS11 with its RGB, anduril, and its 600 meters of throw. So I'm going to say right now that to me, at least where I'm from or where I'm at, The obvious differences were the fact that the beam in the SFT40 were much more distinct. You could tell they were trying to focus all that light into the center. With the IF19, now this was obviously designed with the SST40 in mind, and the hotspot is less defined, but still gives plenty of throw. Now, I don't know many people who actually need 600 meters out of something like this. I do know that for the difference in price, that the IF19 with its 461 will still give you absolutely plenty of throw. Now, I mean, in the hand, you can't really tell too much of a difference as far as weight, but it's important to note that the IF19 does come in at 2.64 ounces and is only 3.35 inches in length. That is also 1.58 inches diameter. So this, while it does have a larger head and probably won't fit in your pocket, it's still not to the point where it's cumbersome enough to where you can't everyday carry this. So finally, I want you guys to tell me what you thought of the IF19. Let me know how you thought it compared to the TS11. Now, again, we are just comparing the differences in the beam. So tell me what you guys thought of the differences between these two. Go ahead and comment down below and make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.